Good morning, BookTube. I'm here at the library. It's very quiet in here today because outside it's about 31 degrees Fahrenheit. So right at freezing. And the roads have sheen of ice. My car has clear ice all over it. I had to scrape it this morning. And I had to salt down all the walks here and everything so nobody will get hurt. But more than likely, most folks are going to stay home if they can. A lot of children are off. I think all children are off from school for the Christmas holiday. And so if you don't have to go out, it's not really a day to go out. So maybe a very quiet day here today. So I thought I'd push up a chair, have a cup of coffee, and talk about books. So here, let me put this aside. It's cold out, but wearing hot coffee would not be fun. So I thought I'd go through this a little bit. I can't tell really if there's a glare. Hopefully there isn't. This is James Mustich, or Mustich. I'm not quite sure how to, or Mustick. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. 1,000 books to read before, to read before you die, a life-changing list. This is going to be idiosyncratic. It's going to be his list, and I got something on my hand, grease probably from the car. I won't get it on the book, but fun to look through. So I thought I'd do a little bit of it and see what I've read, what I want to read, and maybe in the comments below you can tell me any of them interest you or that you've read and had reactions to. So something a little fun, a little different. So let's see. So this is Workman Publishing, New York. Obviously 2018, very popular book for Christmas this year. And he has a nice introduction, which I did read. So it's alphabetical. Let's see how we want to do this. So the first one here is Edward Abbey's Desert Solitaire, a book about nature, a memoir, written in the middle of the 1960s, composed largely from journals kept during the 1950s when the author worked as a backcountry ranger at Arches National Monument. So I have read that. I read it ages ago, though. It was immensely popular. Still in print, I believe. Let's see here. The next one is Flatland, Edward A. Abbott. This is a science fiction, they're calling it a mathematical dystopia. It's a novel in mathematics. I did not read it. It's something that for some reason looks incredibly boring to me. I know, I'm going to hear about that, right? The next one is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, Tragedy of Tribal Life. Composed in English and published in 1958, 2 years before Nigeria declared independence. Things Fall Apart is the first African novel to attain wide international readership, set in the end of the 19th century on the cusp of Nigeria's British colonial era. And it's the story of Okonkwo, a physically imposing man who has risen to prominence in his village. And it's a novel. So I have not read that, I don't believe. No, I have not. The next one I haven't read either, My Dog Tulip by J.R. Ackerley. They're stating here it's one of the greatest masterpieces of animal literature. That's what's said by, it's a quote from Christopher Isherwood. A lively pack of me and my dog memoirs, crowd bookstore shelves. Indeed, it's more than likely one sits atop the bestseller list at this very moment. But I don't know if that's true. But this book, My Dog Tulip, is one of the first noteworthy examples of this thriving genre. And it remains one of the best. Honest, amusing, elegantly written, and emphatically canine-centric. So I have not read that. I don't read a lot of those types of books, although I did read James Herriot's books, and I loved those. I read them when I was younger. Well, this one I have read, finally. We get to one that I've read. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Lost in the Stars and Laughing All the Way. I enjoyed them. I read them, I think, last year. Reread them. I'd read the first years ago, and then I reread the volumes. I've got one of those Barnes & Noble leather-bound things. And I enjoy them, but I'm not quite so emphatic about them as some folks are. So the Adams 4 books in this Hitchhiker series: The Restaurant at the End of the Universe is the next, Life in the Universe and Everything, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, and Mostly Harmless. So the next book on this list is The Education of Henry Adams by Henry Adams. I have read this autobiography and enjoyed it. I also read his History of the United States in the Library of America version. Enjoyed, that was 2 volumes, and enjoyed that. It originally came out as 9, but Library of America combines them. And then I read Mount St. Michael and Chartres, and I also enjoyed those. So, and Gary Wills did a, oh, maybe they didn't list it here. They do not, but Gary Wills did a book on Henry Adams that was, I enjoyed. The next one, Watership Down by Richard Adams. I have read it. It's a great adventure story, and I absolutely loved it. Let's see, this is a novel that came out in 1972, and it won a Carnegie Medal. Okay, the next one I have not read, Half of a Yellow Sun. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, born in 1977, a harrowing, life-affirming novel of the Nigerian Civil War. So I have not read that. And let me see, what do they say here? So the author's written other things: Purple Hibiscus in 2003, and The Things Around Your Neck in 2009, and Americana with an H at the end in 2013. So that might be one to find. And then the next thing is The Oresteia by Aeschylus, 524 BC to 456 BC. Those are rough dates. The Wisdom That Precedes Philosophy. And I have read those. They're dramas. The translation by Fagles, complemented by a brilliant introductory essay and notes by Fagles and W.B. Stanford, is peerless. If you can find a copy of the beautifully produced original Viking hardcover from '75, it's worth the effort. I would concur. Next is Let Us Now Praise Famous Men by James Agee. I have not read this. Essays, Photography, and Sociology. It was always around the house when I was growing up. It was a very big deal, but for some reason that didn't light me up. Then we have the drama Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee. Fear and Loathing in the Living Room. I have seen this many times and enjoyed it. It was first staged in 1962. Okay, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I remember she was from 1832 to 1888. It's a children's book. It was in my house when I grew up. My sisters, I believe, read it. I did not. And then I think the older of the 2 girls, my sisters, didn't really like it. So she was into Nancy Drew. And then we have The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, who was born in '66. Growing Up and Off the Reservation. I have not read that. It's a novel, came out in 2007. And then the next one is Voices from Chernobyl, The Oral History of a Nuclear Disaster by Svetlana Alexievich, born in 1948. I have not read this, but I have been on a train that went right by Chernobyl after the disaster, so there was much in my mind. Scary stuff. The House of Spirits, Isabel Allende, born in 1942. It's a novel that was published in 82, and the English translation came out in 85. It was by Magda Bogan. I have read that and enjoyed it very much. Skellig by David Ullman, born 1951, a modern fairy tale. This interesting little intro on this. Some books are like talismans, compact in their power, possessed of an aura, mysterious and meaningful, especially if the precise nature of its mystery and meaning eludes us. It won the Carnegie Medal for Best Children's Book by a British author when it was published in 1998. It's targeted for children between the ages of 8 and 10. Let's see, A Coffin for Demetrios by Eric Ambler, which is a thriller. I read that a few years ago. Absolutely loved it. Great thriller. Well, they call it mystery and suspense. I call it a thriller at the same time. It was published in 1939. So it's published in the United States as A Coffin for Demetrios, but in England it was A Mask of Demetrios. It's about an amateur embroilment and unsuspected villainy. I very much enjoyed it. Next one's Lucky Jim by Kingsley Amis, A Comic Storm in the Grove of Academe. And it's a novel of humor. I have not read it. It came out in 1954. Hans Christian Andersen, Fairy Tales, 1805 to 1875, Once Upon a Time, and Again and Again. I have read these intermittently, so back and forth, one here, one there. I've never sat down and read them straight through in a collection or anything. Next, Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, the radiant first chapter of an incomparable life. Absolutely. Autobiography memoir, came out in '69. Enjoyed it very much. And then the last one I'll do here is The Arabian Nights, The Enchantment of Storytelling. Literature, fantasy. It's probably from the early 8th century, and the first English translation was in 1706. Let's see. They're saying for editions, Hadaway's 2 volumes appeared in 1990 and 95 respectively. Each is currently available in paperback from W.W. Norton. The first is The Arabian Nights, and the second is Sinbad and Other Stories from the Arabian Nights. Now, I had a huge set of the Arabian Nights that was published in Boston, I think the late 1800s, early 1900s, probably early 1900s. It was buckram backed. It had the glued on sticker with the titles on the spine, and some fairly risque artwork for the time, I'm sure. And they were translations by Richard Burton, the great explorer. And unfortunately, I sold those when I needed some money. They went for a pretty penny, but I wish I had them now. So that's just a little taste. Get to the Arabian Nights in James Mustache's 1,000 Books to Read Before You Die, a life-changing list. This came out in 2018. It's fun to look through. I'll give you an example of what a page might look like. We sit around the library and discuss them. So see who's read what. There's nice lists in the back. So great fun. And thank you, BookTube.